So in the last slide deck, we actually mentioned using a template that we would assign to the device for zero-touch provisioning. Well, that's a great idea, but you don't know about templates yet. So let's talk about templates. So basically, all the configuration we're going to do is configured via templates. Now, if you have a tiny network with like 3 or 4 devices, absolutely, get into each device, configure it via CLI, it'll take a few minutes. However, if you have a really large network, all right, you're going to have an operational method that ensures all devices are configured in the same way, using the same parameters and settings. Especially if you're like a retail environment and you have lots of stores that are configured exactly the same thing, we can create one template for every single site, all right, deploy that template, and then modify the settings as variables for each of the sites. And we're going to go through how we do that. The key thing here is that we're going to template this, and we're not going to have every site be some kind of one-off. Okay? This creates a consistent network setup. Devices are not going to be configured directly. Instead, we'll configure the templates for various scenarios. Let's say we have OSPF internally, then BGP or statics. We'll have that template. Let's say we have 2 internet connections or 4. We'd also have a template for that. Okay? So basically, we create a template for the various scenarios. We develop each one. We make sure it works, and then we apply it to the specific devices that meet that set of scenario, that set of requirements. So in this lesson, what we're going to cover is those device templates in detail and learn how to use templates and configure classes of devices. All right? Obviously, this is a big topic, so we're going to cover this in 2 parts. So again, there's 2 ways to configure each device, CLI or vManage using templates. CLI is exactly what you think it is. Command line interface, you log into each device, you do config T, you start configuring VPNs and interfaces. So at this side, on this section, we're going to cover templating the system through the GUI in this section. Okay? So they exist at 2 basic levels. We have device templates, which are specific to a particular device type, such as a vEdge cloud router. They describe the device overall, with all of its high-level components, such as VPN 0 and 512. Remember, VPN 0 is our transport interface, and VPN 512 is our management interface. And within each component, device templates point to specific feature templates, right? So OSPF would be a feature template. The interfaces are feature templates, for example. Feature templates are going to describe one particular feature in detail with all its settings and parameters, requiring the operations of that feature. For example, the VPN 0 feature template contains all the settings for VPN, the default routes, and so on. We can reuse them. You create one feature template for, let's say, OSPF, and then you apply it to every single device that's using OSPF, right? We don't have to configure separate ones. And then we created a variable for like router ID or summary addresses, for example. When working with these, it's important to remember whether you're looking at a device or feature template and how they fit together. Remember, devices templates are going to get assigned to devices. Device templates are actually collections of feature templates. Okay? So, it's going to be valid for a specific device model. It has a name and description, and has all the sections in this configuration. Okay? So, for example, here, we've got a vEdge device for very specific devices. Okay? You'll see here that how many feature templates are attached to it, and how many devices, that's a 16 back there, are actually attached to that template. Okay? So on the template overview, you can view the name of the defined templates, the description, device models, etc., and all the other stuff. So the key thing here is this: is you can actually see from a template, right, how many devices are actually assigned to it. Be advised, if you modify this template, you're modifying all of these devices that are assigned to that template. All right. So if there's 16 devices assigned to the template and you modify the template, you're modifying all 16 devices. Okay. And the same thing with the sub-feature template. So we may have a device template with the devices attached to it, but if we have a feature template that could have many, many, many more devices attached to it, okay? Because we may have one global VPN 0 feature template that could be assigned to every device. So when we modify that, we'd be modifying every one, okay? So we define these under configuration templates. So this little cog guy is configuration, and then you'll have an option for templates. And then we can create templates. So here's where we configure device templates, and here's where we configure feature templates. We can configure templates from a feature template, so we get an existing one, or we can do a CLI template, which means we can actually apply a CLI configuration to a template, right? So some of the configuration, specifically policies, gets really complicated in the GUI, but are very straightforward in CLI. So you can actually configure it in CLI and apply that CLI template to the device template. Okay. Let's see. By default, there's not going to be anything here. We don't have any feature templates or device templates by default. Okay. So a feature template is going to be used for each feature of a device, which explain the high number of templates that are displayed in configuration template features. All right. So here's our list of devices. And by the way, you can have them, you can check more than one of these boxes. So if you want this specific feature to apply to more than one device, you just check the boxes for each of those. Remember, when you're deploying a device template, it's going to be for specific device types. If this right here isn't checked for that device, it won't be available to you. And then under the feature templates, we have basic information like our AAA, OMP, an NTP. Let's say we have a global NTP server. We can create a global NTP feature template for every device to point to one NTP server, right? We attach that to the device template. We don't have to configure NTP on another system ever again, okay? As just an example. Let's see. So all this is going to make sense in a bit, and I'll show you how these tie together, okay? So it also has, basically, besides all the information we discussed, the device template has 4 main sections, okay? We've got our basic information and transport and management VPN, our service VPN, and any additional templates, all right? So remember, this is VPN 0 and VPN 512, okay? These are going to be separate because every device is going to have these. Remember, VPN 512 is our management. Sorry, my handwriting is a little... And this is our transport always. The service VPNs, and we haven't discussed these in great detail, this is VPN 1 through 511. This is the inside of the vEdge, right? Remember, the vEdge is defining the edge of our overlay network. On the other side of that, on the service side, is how we connect to the inside. This is where your switches and other routers and your users are going to be. Okay. You can click up here you can click in this area here to go right down the section, or you can just scroll down on the window. They're not actually separate links. These are just hashtag anchor points. If you're any familiar with HTML. Okay. By the way, and then basically what we would do, because this is a device template up here, right? We're actually not creating, we're actually going to be selecting feature templates in this section here, okay? So you basically, from the drop-down, whatever the system templates you have, feature templates, those will be available here, all right? So if you have like 8 AAA, 8 logging feature templates, those would also be selectable from here, okay? So each variable in a template has the following 3 potential settings. So when you actually do select an option, all right, you have 2 options. We have 3 options. We have the global, which means we set a specified setting here that applies everywhere, okay? The default value, whatever the default happens to be, and then we have device specific, where we can actually create a variable name and enter the key here. So we can enter a default, right? And then we can actually have this as a variable. So when they deploy the device, this will pop up as a variable for that site. For example, like device site name, right? And let me go over these and give you the textbook for each of these. So in global, the value entered for this variable is global. All devices using the template use the same value. Device specific, each device has its own value, such as interface IP address, and a variable created that you populate when assigning the template to the device. And default, the template does not touch that variable, it remains at its default value. We also define a key. So by default, it's going to have, every variable is going to have some random the generated base key for that variable. However, if you're seeing a lot of these, let's say you have IP addresses for like 10 interfaces, and you have 10 IPv4 interface, that's not going to be very specific. But if I say change this to GE 00 IP, right, that's going to be a much better piece of information that I can actually define for a user, so they can actually, when they're deploying the device, can populate the correct information into it. Okay. Again, you're going to want to change the name to be more specific, such as the GIG is your IP address. Okay. So once we've created the template, we apply it to a device. And And what we're going to need to do is we're actually going to have to attach devices. So basically we go to our template, right? You'll notice that these have no devices attached to them yet. We hit the little 3 dots. You're going to see this on a bunch of the pages. And this 3 dots here indicates that there's a submenu underneath it. All right, so we're going to want to basically click that, and then we click Attach Devices. Okay, basically what we're doing now is we're actually assigning devices to that template. Okay, so we're going to have a list of all of our devices. So this device is going to match what the device types are. Remember that checkbox we showed you earlier, where you could check boxes for different types of devices? If the device type doesn't match what this template is designed for, it's not going to show up in this box. All right. What we're going to then do is we're going to select which device we're going to assign this to. And then we click the right arrow. Well, they already selected some, but basically that's how you move them back and forth. Okay. Once the devices are selected, hit Attach. All right. Now, the templates include parameters that are device specific. Remember before we created a few that had variables assigned to them. Now we have to provide those variable values to those devices. And again, the 3 dots indicate that there's a menu over here, and we're going to edit device template. Okay? Basically, what we're doing is editing the parameters of a single device. By the way, if you're adding like 20 or 30 devices, you can download a CSV of this list. And once you have the CSV, it'll have all of these variables in it, and you can edit that back up and then re-upload it so you're not configuring individual devices, which could get tedious, especially if you have a lot of variables, all right? Because you probably have these ready to go with saying, okay, this device is getting this IP for this interface. That's awesome, but doing that manually is much more prone to typos, okay? So then once you do that, once you hit the Edit Device Template down here, you're going to get this pop-up window, which has the one of our variables, all right? And then what we'll see is you'll see this is the variable name that we modified earlier, and then here's where we'll enter that IP address. Remember, this is all in CIDR notation, okay? So IP address / and then the number of bits for mask. We're not going to do as 255, 255, 25, thing. We're just going to do /24, etc. Okay? Anything that, by the way, just so you're aware, it will not let you continue until these values are populated. Okay? The ones at the top here, you'll notice some are already populated because these are already set with global parameters based on the thing. You do have an option here to edit these if you choose to. And then here's where the CSV file would. So basically, you would download the CSV. It would have all of the variables that we've set in the same exact screen before would be here. And then basically, by device, you enter all the information, save it as a straight CSV. You can use Excel or anything else, and then just make sure you save it as a CSV. And then everything that, by the way, that was already pre-populated will also already be in here. So you're actually downloading that screen, then repopulating it back up. This saves a lot of time if you're deploying like 100 devices. Going through this screen and manually entering these, because you can have dozens of variables here. Generally what we'll see is like system IP will be a variable, site ID will be a variable, you'll have the IP addresses for each one, DNS information will be a You can have so many of these that it can get overwhelming if you've got many, many, many dozens of sites to configure. And doing this on each screen and then all of a sudden your web page times out, do it via CSV if you're doing a bunch of devices, trust me. Okay? And the CSV file, I mean, it's really straightforward to do. Okay? So basically we use templates to provision large numbers of devices in a consistent way. We also have the option for optional parameters, but that's set in the next slide deck, so I don't know why they're mentioning it now. Thank you for watching the templates video 1. Come on back and we'll do video 2.